Introducing National Streaming Sports, live and on-demand sports talk programming that you can access 24/7. Check us out on YouTube, Facebook, and X. And for the premier sports talk experience, tap into our Roku channel. Start your mornings with Mac and Jack covering all the weekend sports action. Then pour a cup and enjoy all the sports you can drink on the Coffee and Sports podcast. At midday, talk sports from east to west on the Coast to Coast podcast. Followed at night by some hot girl talk with Prim and Proper Sports featuring Sonia Pearson. Talk boxing on the Gloved Fist. Yankee fans tune in for Start Spreading the News. And there's more on the College Sports Huddle and Sports Scope with Robert Butler. And that's just a sampling. There are 20 podcasts in all and 70 weekly shows giving us a 3.4-star viewer rating. To find us on Roku TV, search for National Streaming Sports on the Roku search bar. Click on the logo and you're in. For laptops, mobile phones, and tablets, download the Roku app. National Streaming Sports, live and on-demand sports talk for America.
Good morning, everyone. Welcome to the Sports Memory Show every Saturday at 8 a.m. I'm your host, Mac, co-host Jack Hirsch and James Martin. As every Saturday, we go back into the vault of sports and bring up some things that haven't been talked about for a while, haven't been seen for a while. And, I was looking at at our intro. And I don't know if Jack ever saw any of these guys live. I know he didn't see Babe Ruth. I'm not sure if he saw Wilt Chamberlain live or not.
I did. I actually saw one game live. Live. Wilt Chamberlain.
Jimmy Brown. I don't know if you saw one of him live or not. I know my dad did.
No.
And Gordie Howe. I mean, if you think about those four guys, I mean, Babe Ruth changed sports. Period. He made sports a business. I mean, it was just all fun and games before Babe Ruth came along and started hitting all those home runs. And if you look, Jack, at Wilt Chamberlain still holds most of the scoring records today after all these years.
Yeah, I don't know that. No, he doesn't really hold the scoring records. It was eclipsed by Kareem Abdul-Jabbar and then LeBron James eclipsed, that particular record. But I think any sports record should be judged on how long the record was held, not the record itself being broken. For example, take Joe DiMaggio's 56-game hitting streak. That was done in 1941. And so if my math is correct, it's about 84 years old, or thereabouts, that record. And so someone's eventually is going to break it. DiMaggio felt when he was alive, yes, someone absolutely was going to break it. So when it gets broken, are we going to look at how many years that record was held? Those are the great sports records. Some records are a little bit tainted, and I just won't accept them. I mean, and I won't mention any athlete in particular. If it's a performance-induced record, I felt I don't take it as seriously as I would, and it could be a certain sport like track and field. I know Bonds came to mind when I said that, but I wasn't even thinking predominantly of, Bonds in any way. But Cy Young, 511 victories, the most victories in baseball history. No one's even close to that. But what was that in the dead ball era? I just won't accept that as a modern record. So if a pitcher comes in second on the list legitimately in modern times, no matter who it is, I'm not going to say, well, Cy Young has the most wins in baseball history. I'd put a big asterisk next to it.
I
will say that Wilt Chamberlain, even though he doesn't have the all-time scoring record, I mean, he does have the most points in the game with 100, and he also has the season where he averaged 50 points a game and 30 rebounds a game. I don't think anybody's ever doing that.
Well, that was phenomenal. That was absolutely phenomenal. if you look at the amount of minutes he missed in the season, it was less than one game. It may have been like 13, 14 minutes he missed the whole season. Now, some people might want to make an argument, well, those were the old timers. And then you get idiots like J.J. Riddick who's saying, well, they were plumbers and firemen. Do you think the modern guys, even LeBron James, can go a whole season running up and down the court? And that's what these guys did in the past. Everyone ran up and down the court and only missed like 12, 13 minutes the whole season. And they were doing it in shoe wear like Heads and Converse. They didn't have the kind of shoes they have today that protect you from injuries, the type of cushions. And these guys had to jump and run the same way. But I'll be a little critical of Wilt Chamberlain. Before he passed, they interviewed him. He said, well, if I was playing today, I think I'd average 70 points a game. He was being delusional. And it was a fool statement, say that he'd be even better against the modern players. No, he wouldn't have. Okay? I mean, he wouldn't have even done the 50 points a game, but, maybe he would have scored, 38 points a game and grabbed 15. He would have been the best player in the league. I'll give him that much the year he averaged 50. But he wasn't going to better what he did, and more likely than not, he wasn't going to quite match the same numbers. But the year, he took off with the 50 points, he would have been the best player in the league. I'll give him that much later on.
So my dad told me a lot of stories when I was younger about Jim Brown. Jim Brown, maybe the greatest football player of all time, period. I mean, track and field, I mean, he did everything.
Great athlete of all time, you mean?
Maybe, right. There you go. And of course, quit football, or was kind of went through it with a coach. He wanted to continue acting, and the coach wanted him there, and he said, well, then quit, and he quit. I watched some of the films of him, and I mean, when he ran with power and speed, I mean, I seen him put Rosie Greer's helmet into the side of his face, and that was a big man. So I mean, this guy was incredible. Today, could play today, right, James? This guy could be a 1,000-yard rusher easy today.
For sure.
Well, 1,000 yards isn't overly impressive today,
right?
But we have to be fair about Jim Brown and reflect. He didn't block. He just refused to block because he felt it was beneath him that he was such a great running back. To his, coach, Clanton Balia. Oh man, I'm having a little brain cramp. I'm close enough on the name. He just didn't want to block. And you take a back like Walter Payton, he blocked all the time. Brown was a better, maybe pure runner. You could argue he was the best all-around pure running back as far as speed, power, and all that. You could make that argument, even though you could put up a little argument for other guys. But keep in mind, when Brown played, there weren't a great amount of running backs, so he stood out. It's not like you had Eric Dickerson, Sanders, Walter Payton, and the whole crew of running backs who they would compare him to. He kind of stood out as like the one and only. People don't even remember who the other great running backs were during his time. And if you do remember some of them, they weren't on his level. They weren't all-time greats like a Paul Hornung. So Brown kind of stood out, and then he became a public advocate. He was a great athlete, arguably a better lacrosse player, at least as good as in football. And then he thought he would be a great boxer, and he was buddies with Muhammad Ali. And you're so off base, these athletes who have them put on the gloves and they think they're going to be a great boxer. They're so delusional. It would be like Muhammad Ali thinking he could be a great point guard in the NBA. But Jim Brown was buddies with Muhammad Ali, and they were going for a walk one day, and Brown was saying the way he thought he could do this, he could beat Champ too. And Ali got tired of the talk. And right there in the park, he said, Jim, try to hit me as hard as you can. And he dared him, and he just dropped his hands, Ali, and Jim Brown threw every punch he could and missed every one clearly. And it was fatigued, and then Brown said, you're right, it's not for me.
And the last guy we got up there is Gordie Howe. Some people don't recognize him because hockey. Gordie Howe, to me, I mean, you got a couple that have broken his records, but I think he's the greatest hockey player of all time overall because he wasn't just a scorer; he was an enforcer. I mean, you didn't mess with their guys. And before LeBron James had his son, he played with his two sons. That's how old and how long Gordie Howe played in hockey. And the guy was tremendous. And if you do like hockey, he was on the Whalers. That's how I kind of saw him or knew about him more than I did originally.
He's known as the Detroit Red Wing. Red Wing.
That's where he was big with. But when his sons came out later in his career, he ended up playing. And it was still good. Was still scoring goals. And I mean, mess with his son, you could knock your teeth out. I mean, this guy was an animal, but a great, to me, the greatest overall hockey player there was, Jack.
Yeah, you can make that argument. I mean, Wayne Gretzky's the consensus number one. Some people feel for a short window at peak value, it could be Bobby Orr. And maybe a couple of others come into the discussion, but he certainly had the longevity, Gordie Howe. And you're right, he was an enforcer. I mean, no one was tougher than Gordie Howe. I did see when I was a kid one legendary hockey player play, the Golden Jet, Bobby Hall. He was known for having a slap shot that was, going X amount of miles. They said 50, 60 miles per hour. They didn't know then. It was so funny. They didn't have radar guns at the time. And they had Whitey Ford, the Yankee pitcher. They had him in a commercial. And the thing was, if you eat your oatmeal, you can throw a fastball 60 miles per hour. And that sounded like impressive, 60 miles per hour. Now that's just warming the arm up and loosening it up for the pitchers. But because there weren't radar guns at the time, people said, oh man, 60 miles per hour. It's like they pick it out of a hat. Yes. And just the thought process, I hate saying this, unbalanced. People are compassionate, but they're not that smart. They'll just go along with the flow in anything, and it catches on like wildfire. Like that case with the Duke lacrosse players. Right. All of a sudden, because they were made out to be rich kids, this and that, they were automatically guilty in the minds of public opinion without anyone hearing anything, and it's caught on like wildfire. But the point is the same thing with the 100 pitch count. It catches on like wildfire. That managers use that. Oh, once you get up to 100 pitches, that's it. That's your limit. And they said it. And I'm reading a book now on Tom Seaver when he got his 100th win. And he was up to something like 147 pitches, 2 outs in the 9th inning. Yankee Stadium. He's up with the White Sox going for his 300th win. The pitching coach came out, and Carlton Fisk, Seaver's catcher, told the pitching coach, you get out of here. And then he told Seaver, you're not going out of this game. Understand? You got enough left for one more batter here. I don't want to hear it. You're finishing this job. And he was up close to 150 pitches. Yeah. But in this day and age, Seaver would have been taken out after 92 pitches. He would have been taken out, 3-4 innings beforehand or whatever.
Yeah.
It's just like a mindset. Follow the leader. Follow the leader. Someone puts something out there, and people are going to follow it no matter what without stopping and fully analyzing, what they're doing.
So let's get to the memory part of the show here. I know James has a special teams guy that was drafted in the first time ever. James, who do you got?
Yeah, Mac. Look, we're talking about Ray Guy, the first and only punter to make the NFL Hall of Fame. Look, I like to think about players that play multiple sports. Back when, like in high school or college, we're talking about when we talk about NFL, we're talking about running backs, DBs, wide receivers. A lot of these guys play different positions, but nobody talks about a punter that played multiple positions. That ultimately punting became their thing. As in Ray Guy. Ray Guy in high school was a four-sport star, but he played quarterback, he played safety, linebacker, and tailback, and he punted. In high school, he was so gifted and talented. Not saying his team wasn't talented, but he led his team to 2 Class A championships in '67 and '68, respectively. But he averaged 49.7 yards a punt in '68. He scored. In '68. In '68, after they won the championship, the basketball coach came and asked him. He saw how talented he was. Came and asked him because he heard he could play basketball as well. He had not practiced with him, but he came and played basketball, and he scored 39 points that first game with no practice. So just tell you what kind of athlete he was. He also pitched baseball as well. He was a gifted pitcher. He pitched a 15-inning scoreless game in Thompson High School in the state semifinals in '69. He was so good that the Cincinnati Reds were looking at him and watched him, and they drafted him in the 14th round that year, and he declined to go because he wanted to play football. He also ran track. He was a triple jump guy, and he also was a discus thrower. And with that said, man, look, he was so good in football. But he wasn't highly recruited. He was really good. I don't know, maybe Thompson, Georgia. We're talking about this is the area where it's right near Augusta, so where the Masters is. The biggest thing come out of Augusta is the golf game. So nobody was really watching football down there. And Charles Hamp Cook, an assistant coach and recruiter out of University of Southern Mississippi, was going to Georgia. He was going to Valdosta, which is more southwest Georgia versus east, which is where Thompson is. And someone said, while you're here, why don't you go check this kid out in Thompson? And he's really talented. And so he went, saw this kid play, saw him punt, and he offered him a scholarship. He offered him a scholarship to the University of Southern Miss, and that's where he went. And that said, right out the gate, he played punter and he played defensive back because he saw he played multiple sports. So this kid was so good. He was punting. He was averaging about 40. Let me see, his freshman year, he averaged about 45.3 yards per punt. His junior year, 42.9. And his longest was 43 yards. But he also played DB there, too. He played DB, and he collected about 18 interceptions, and eight of them was in his junior year. He also kicked field goals for them as well. He converted about 25 field goals, and his longest, which was a record at the time, was 61 yards. So just tell you how great of an athlete he was, and how strong of a leg he had. 61 yards and against Utah State, setting a record at that time. And then not only that, he played pitcher for them as well. He played pitcher for as a sophomore. He pitched a no-hitter, and that also drew the attention of the league again. And again, he was drafted. The Astros drafted him in '71, the Braves in '72, and again the Reds in '73. But he declined all of them. He didn't want to play baseball. He wanted to go to the league to play football. So at that time, Al Davis, the GM owner, drafted him as the number 23 overall pick in the first round. And right out the gate, again, he just was a superstar as a punter. No one thinks of a punter as a superstar, but this guy was. I mean, he was the all-pro.
No one thought of him as a superstar at any point, James. Let's not get carried away. It was a punter. The greatest punters or kickers, no one thinks of them as superstars.
Of course not. But these guys do get to go to the Pro Bowl, and they do get to be selected as All-Pro. And he was a 7-time All-Pro. So we're right. You're right. The greater positions are quarterbacks, running backs, and DBs and wide receivers. But that's the ones that are more noticeable. For those who love the intricacies of the game, this is your guy, because this is a guy that he kicked 210 times. He kicked the ball within the 20. And if people don't know how significant that is, that's very significant, because it changes the game. It really changes the trajectory of the game. If you have a good defense, and even if you have a bend but don't break defense, it's a long way to go, 80 yards or more, to try to score a touchdown. So for somebody like that, to keep the ball away and to have a high hang time, he was so good at his hang time that he was accused of putting helium in the football by Bum Phillips with the Houston Oilers, because obviously they had a guy like White Shoes Johnson that couldn't get the ball because he said the ball was just so high he wouldn't dare try because the coverage team would already be down there by the time the ball come down. So they actually had the ball tested for helium. They took it to like Rice University, and it wasn't, of course. But this, let me give you an anecdote. One example of how good he was. It was in the Super Bowl 18. Obviously, he won three. He's a 3-time Super Bowl champion, but the one in 18 is when they played the champions, the returning champions, the Washington Redskins. He punted to them 7 times. 5 times he held them within 20 yards, and he averaged about 42.7 yards per punt. And that really controlled the game. Again, not saying that Marcus Allen wasn't the MVP. Marcus Allen was the MVP, but to me, also that's an important part of the game, because if you have poor punt play, you give them somebody great field position and giving them better opportunity to get down to get to the end zone or score a field goal. But they won that game 38-9. And that said, look, this guy, again, an all-time great as a punter. He was a 3-time Super Bowl champion, but due to bankruptcy.
Wait. 3 times? I think it's 2 times. You sure it's 3 times?
It's
with
3.
With what team?
Let me give you the numbers. He played with them, the same team. He played with
The
Oakland.
Raiders, his whole
and the
career.
Raiders.
Oakland didn't win 3 championships and he was with them. That's not correct.
Well, let me see the numbers, and you can look it up. The championship.
No, they won 2 championships, I think, when he was their punter. I don't think they won 3. You mentioned it twice, 3, so I couldn't let it go.
So 11, 15, and 18. Those are the Super Bowls that they said they won.
Okay, so maybe I stand to be corrected there.
Okay. So with that said, because he played with them for 14 seasons, he played with them probably at the right
Okay,
time.
I stand to be corrected.
They beat the Redskins. I know they beat the Eagles, right? I don't know the other team they beat. The Vikings. They beat the Eagles or the Redskins and the Vikings. Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay, I stand. I was wrong. One criticism, though, with Ray Guy, okay, he had a powerful leg. He was a great punter. But the one criticism of him reminded me of the criticism we were talking about Will Chamberlain before. When Chamberlain would block a shot, he would swat the ball out of bounds, meaning the team that had the ball against them would maintain possession. They would just take it out of bounds and start all over. Ray Guy would, whenever he had a chance to pin the team really deep in their own territory, he was a boomer. He just would boom the ball into the end zone and they take it on the 20 rather than try to get it inside the 10, inside the 5-yard line. He didn't pull any punches, in other words. Every kick seemed to be like an all-out kick. Kick it as far as he can, as long as he can, which that's the idea. If you can't reach the other team's end zone, you want to kick it as far as you can. And you gave a good example with Billy White Shoes Johnson, but he would kick it into the end zone when he didn't really have to, when he could like pin a team, deep in their own territory. And that was the kind of the one criticism of him a little bit.
Well, I mean, yeah, I get what you're saying. I mean, but 1,000 punts, 44,000 yards, average 42 yards a punt. He net 33.8. 77 was his longest punt. I mean, and again, he pinned them teams inside the 20, 210 times. It's still impressive. So,
and when we think of punters, who else do we think about outside of Ray Guy? There's so few guys who we remember. We forget about these punters, when the season ends, so on. I mean, it's hard to remember their names once they move on, unless it's a truly great punter. And how many of them are revered as great punters? And also, James Mack, where these guys are drafted. Ray Guy was drafted highly, and the mindset even today, if there's a great punter out there, maybe they'll take him in the 3rd round, like a field goal kicker. But the Raiders also did take a field goal kicker, Steve Janikowski, in the 1st round. So they have a history of having that respect for the kicking game. But usually teams think, well, punters, they're not position players. We'll get one of them in the middle of the draft if he's available. And they don't want to like waste a premium draft pick on a kicker. But the Raiders did it with Ray Guy, and look at the way it paid off for the Raiders. Taking Ray Guy early the way they did.
Janikowski too. Janikowski turned into a great
kicker. Yeah,
so
a strong leg. But look,
so Jack's got Joe Namath.
Well, James is finishing up. You got to finish up, James.
All right, finish up, James. Go ahead.
Yes. All right. Look, he had a streak of 619 consecutive punts without a block, and he has a record in the NFL where for the postseason 111 punts. But look, he had to pawn off he was bankrupt. He had to pawn. I mean, he sold all three of his Super Bowl rings. So he had a little bit of problems later on in life. Yeah, he sold all three. But again, this is a guy that who lives to have an award named after you. Most people have awards named after him posthumously, but in 2000, the Ray Guy Award for the best. There's a prestigious award for the best punter in college. So he ended up getting that in 2000, and he passed in 2002. But I got a question. Should kickers, punters, returners, special teamers be in the Hall of Fame? And if so, is it first ballot versus other players?
Well, what kind of question is that? They're football players. Of course they should be eligible.
No. I mean, but they don't get selected as much as other players.
Well, of course
not. So my thing is right, exactly. So should they be selected more?
You've got to judge what the percentage of what they did for the team at their time compared to other ones. I mean, there are kickoff returners, kickers, punters in the Hall of Fame right now. Of course, there's not as much because they don't. I'm not saying they don't contribute, but they're not, kicking, 100 points. They're not like Mark Mosley, who led the league in scoring in 1980. Whatever, you know what I mean? They're there as a complimentary piece. So, but if they're outstanding, they get in the Hall of Fame. They definitely do.
I'm not talking about Ray Guy. I don't know what he averaged per punt compared to the guys today, but I would think it's comparable. Okay, if not greater, I would think. But the one area of the NFL where the players have improved dramatically, and it's not even close, is the field goal kickers. The field goal kickers of the past, they don't compare to these guys today for the most part. And you even take the best, they don't even come close. It's a joke.
Jack, the guys today,
I can get an average NFL kicker today.
There's a reason.
He's better than the best kickers.
There's a reason. There's a reason today that it's different. All right. I'm not saying that the NFL kickers are stronger than the NFL kickers in the past. No, they're not. The point is the whole concept of kicking a field goal today. Right? They have no problem with kicking, like you said, kicking a 60-yard field goal. Back in the day, you didn't want to give the team the line of scrimmage at the 40-yard line. The coaches didn't do that. They weren't going to do it. If it was over 50 yards, forget it. They're going to punt the ball. They're going to make them drive the field. And while the kickers are kicking farther, they're missing more field goals than I've ever seen in my life. I don't remember our kickers back then missing extra points and missing easy field goals. So, I mean, yes, maybe they're kicking farther, but they're not as accurate as they were back then.
They did it a lot in the past. It's not even you had a handful of outstanding kickers in the past, like a Jan Stenerud, the Kansas City Chief kicker. Yeah, but all in all, even Jan Stenerud, he didn't compare to Justin Tucker. And not Justin Tucker this year so much. He's been a little erratic because he might be long in the tooth. But Justin Tucker at his best was just way better than Jan Stenerud because he would kick, he'd get an extra 10 yards on the kick. It wasn't even close, Mac. Not even close.
I think I have to agree with Mac here on the kickers. I mean, because you got guys like Morton Anderson, Nick Lowry, Tom Dempsey. These guys actually kicked 60-yarders. It was rare to do it, but they
kicked 163-yarder. Don't compare him to the great.
But it still happened. It's still. Right. But my point in saying that is that I agree that it wasn't that they couldn't do it. That's my point. They could not that they couldn't do it, but
they could not do it. They could not do it. Yeah. And I'm going to tell you, and I'm going to give you some. I'm going to give you a case. in the championship game between the Baltimore Colts and the Green Bay Packers, the game that was played the year before the Super Bowl came into existence. Lombardi's Packers against the great Colt teams coached by Don Shula, great Hall of Fame players on both sides of the ball. Lou Michaels was the Colt kicker, okay? I mean, the game's on the line. He's kicking a 48-yarder. The ball is short to the side, missing. I remember the Buffalo Bills had a kicker, Booth Lustig. He tries a 34-yarder that's 5 yards short. It was, those guys were not in the class of today's kickers.
But Mac mentioned that guy's missing those kick now. They're missing extra points right now.
They hardly ever miss extra points.
A lot of guys are missing extra points right now.
Well, it's not a 10-yarder. Keep in mind, they're kicking from, what did they kick?
This has been one of the worst years, Jack, for field goal kickers. One of the worst. Look up the stats. They're missing everything.
Listen, guys, the goalposts were in then. They weren't 10 yards back.
It's still
back in the day.
It still counts the yardage, Jack. They still include that 10 yards in the back.
And the guys in the past, it was extremely rare where they were able to make a 50-yarder. If they kicked a 45-yarder, we'd think, oh, what a long kick. And that's what the goalpost 10 yards in.
Because the coaches didn't want to kick field goals.
They couldn't kick. It wasn't that. They tried it. They just weren't good enough.
Stubborn. You're stubborn. I mean, listen, I'm going to do mine first because that's what I'm talking about, is special teams. Okay. The most popular of the special team players is, of course, the field goal kicker, because he's kicking the extra points. He's kicking field goals, game-winning field goals. He also misses game-winning field goals and extra points, as we have seen this year. If I had a do-over, I would have learned how to kick field goals. I'd heck with quarterback, and I would have tried to, because that is, I mean, you hardly get hit. And if you can kick that ball, I mean, you might be able to get on any team. So originally, it was straight toe kickers. That's what was in the NFL. The ball was a lot not as tight and skinny as it is now at the end. There's a little more oval. So they kicked the ball with their toes. And there wasn't the first soccer kickers, believe it or not, was Pete Gogolak and Charlie Gogolak. Pete Gogolak played later for the Giants. Charlie played for the Patriots. And as I said before, Mark Mosley was the MVP of 1982, the scoring leader in 1983. Super Bowl, he went to the Super Bowl, All-Pro, 4 Pro Bowls, and in the Hall of Fame. Imagine being the leading scorer as a kicker. And I think that was a strike here anyway. We mentioned Jan Stenerud, played 19 seasons for Kansas City. Super Bowl champion, All-Pro, 4 Pro Bowls, Hall of Fame. I remember him against the Minnesota Vikings. The dude just kept kicking. I don't know how many field goals he made against the Vikings in the Super Bowl. It's quite a bit. You brought up Tom Dempsey. Tom Dempsey was born without toes on his right foot. I don't know if you knew that or not. Had a special shoe. Of course, they said maybe that's the reason why he kicked the 63-yard field goal. But he did kick that 63-yard field goal, beating who else? Detroit, 17-16. So that was a game-winning field goal. We had a barefooted kicker. Remember that, James?
Yes. I don't know who it was, but I do remember.
Tony Franklin. Tony Franklin kicked without shoes. He said that it made it more accurate and gave him more power. He listen. He got NCAA record 65-yard field goal in 1976 and 260-plus field goals in the same game. So there you go. I mean, I guess it worked for him. We can't forget about the Raiders' former quarterback that turned kicker and was the oldest player in football, and how he kept it alive by kicking field goals and all. Of course, he came in and played quarterback once in a while. So can't forget the old man. The punter.
You're talking about George Blanda.
Yes, sir. Yes, sir. I was waiting for James. James was really good.
Yeah, he was in his 40s. Yeah, he was a national phenomenon for that little while because he was an older guy in his 40s and he would play a little bit backup quarterback, make some kicks. I mean, he once made
Yeah.
a monster kick during his era, an absolute monster kick, a 48-yarder. And to tie a game up with against the Chiefs. That was something to that kick. It was a big kick because what had happened, the Chiefs were playing the Raiders late in the season, and it was a very big game. And Lenny Dawson, the Chief quarterback, I'm sorry to cut in, Mac, but it's a good story. He ran a bootleg to get the first down, and the game would have been over. The Raiders couldn't stop the clock. So Ben Davidson, the Raider defensive end, was trailing the play. So when Dawson hit the deck, and that ended the game, Davidson, a dirty player, did a forward roll on Dawson's back. So trailing the play was the chief receiver, Otis Taylor. He starts beating on Davidson. So there are two flags, one for Davidson's forward roll on Dawson's back, and the other for Taylor for instigating the fight. It's called offsetting penalties. They had to do the play over again. The Chiefs don't get a first down. The Raiders get the ball back, and they get into position for Blanda to kick the 48-yarder. The NFL changed the rule after that game.
Yeah.
But wow, it shows you what Davidson did, that crime pays. That's what you could have said. Crime pays in the NFL.
The punter, of course, is the punter, during Ray Guy, Roby, Sean Landetta, some of the well-known punters out there were huge. I mean, field position. They played field position way back
Yeah.
then, right?
Field position was more important back then, Mac.
Yes.
It's always important. It's important today. I don't mean to minimize it today. It's still important, but it was even more important back then because I think it was more of a running game, the offenses, than it is today. So that made field position extra important. Now teams could especially great quarterbacks, they can get the yards back quickly, like a Mahomes, a Josh Allen, Lamar Jackson, and a number of other guys. They can quickly regain field position, but back then it was super important.
Definitely. I mean, I remember I was talking to Emerson Walls with the Giants on the show, and he said in 1990, the 89-90 season, that was their game plan. Drive the ball down the field a little bit, punt it to them, stop them, make them punt it back to us, get better field goal position, kick a field goal. That was basically the Giants of 89. Not that they didn't throw for touchdowns, but that was their basic principle there to win. So, the offenses, like you said, have changed with more passing. Sean Landetta did it for years. And when you have a great defense, you can pin them inside the line, even today, and get some good field position out of it. You talked about two-way players. I know Jack remembers this guy. He was a quarterback and a punter. In fact, he started out as a punter when Roger Staubach was playing, and then he took over as quarterback and still punted, Danny White. And Danny White's a little underrated. I mean, he almost won a championship game. He played pretty well. James Jeffcoat. He kind of says he was a little underrated. He was a pretty good quarterback. So there was a guy you didn't know whether he was going to punt and shotgun or throw.
Well, he wasn't. To me, he was average, but he was good in this sense. When a guy can play more than one position, he helps the team a little bit with roster flexibility. Like if you have, let's say you have a position player, and you could use him in an emergency as a third string quarterback. That he has a little experience. Let's say he played in college, he quarterbacked 1 year, his team in college, but now he's a position player. You like a guy like that you can throw in. At least you could, run a modified version of your offense in an absolute emergency.
Yeah, but this was different. He started as a quarterback.
He played a good amount. I thought he was pretty average as a quarterback.
I did too, Jack.
I don't really remember how good he was, but the quarterback, he was so.
So the kick coverage has changed a lot too. Of course, we got new rules now. They're trying to bring back the kickoff instead of just leaving it alone. And of course, because of safety. What they used to do back then is they used to form a wall. And they would go down the middle field. They would lock arms, and you would have guys that would just run fast as they can to break the wall. So talk about like a missile. Try to break the wall.
You get your arm broken. They break a guy's arm. I would be scared. You know, I used to kid, James, when we had Jim Jeffcoat on this show, great player. What would be worse a punishment to take if you were forced to take your punishment? You cut across the middle for a pass, running as quick as you can, and have the meanest linebacker cream you, just flatten you, or be on the bottom of the pile, and the meanest guys think you have the ball, and they're abusing you for about 30 seconds to get the ball, trying to hurt you in every way possible. But now I got a third one. I wish I'd known it at the time, to talk about the wall. Could you imagine being forced to hold your arm and a guy runs right into it? Oh, man. You see that in soccer, fellas. You sometimes see that in soccer. They kind of have a wall on like a free kick, and you see the players kind of wincing on the wall because the ball could be kicked point blank right into their face.
Yeah.
You could see the fear in them in the soccer wall.
So those guys were called wall busters. So anyway, punting coverage. The outside guys are called gunners, of course. And the gunners normally have two blockers. And those blockers will knock you down, knock you out of bounds, hit you, so you can't get to the guy. The best guy at it, really, was Matt Slater with the Patriots. He was a 10-time Pro Bowl, 5-time All-Pro. I don't know if he's in the Hall of Fame yet or not. I know he will be in the Hall of Fame if he's not. But unbelievable. Played for 10 years, but was a great special teams player. I don't know if you remember Steve DiAsi. Good.
No, I was just going to say Matt Slater probably is going to be the first guy at his position to get selected if he does get selected.
Yeah.
I don't think there's anybody in there like that.
I think didn't Bill Belichick say he was, maybe him, Tom Brady, that, he put him in the class of Brady as far as a special teamer goes. Different position, of course.
Right.
And he put him in the position as being in like an all-time great.
Yeah.
No, he was great at his job. I agree.
Yeah.
Really was. I don't know if you guys remember Steve DiAsi, but he played for Dallas and the New York Giants. He was a long snapper. And me and Jack used to give Byron a hard time. Get your grandkids to become a long snapper. Never mind wide receiver. They can play forever. All you got to do is snap the ball to the punter and the kicker. So,
obviously, if you have a choice of a great wide receiver, great long snap, you'll take a great wide receiver. But a long snapper's, a really good one. It's a real specialty.
Yes.
How many times have long snappers thrown the punter's rhythm off, or on a field goal attempt, the snap throws the kicker off? These guys, like the long snappers and even the holders on the field goal attempts, these guys are so crucial.
Yeah. Steve DiAsi was the snapper, but he also covered punts like nobody else. Steve DiAsi, for example, in 2018, he also played linebacker for information. Long snappers had 18 tackles. In 1988, now that's 18 total for every year. DiAsi had 22 tackles. I can remember him in the Giants. He would cover, he would be down there one of the first guys hitting the guy after he snapped the ball. So, it really let the team spread, play the lanes better because you had that going. Guys, maybe remember Bill Bates with the Dallas Cowboys. James, remember Bill Bates?
I do. I don't.
They actually created a spot on the Pro Bowl for special teams because of Bill Bates. He was in there in 1984. He had 216 special team tackles. He returned punts in 1985, 14 career interceptions, 7 fumble recoveries. And he also started as safety for Tom Landry. Remember that for 3 years when they introduced the dime package where they had, 6 backs, 7 backs, and he was a safety there. So he was part of the Tom Landry dime package. So now finally we get to returners, the most exciting. Who can forget Darryl Sproles? 3 times Pro Bowler, Chargers career kickoff returner, tied for the Eagles records with 4 punt return TDs, 7th in all-time yardage. And he was a little dude, man. A little bowling.
5'6".
I mean, you could tackle that guy. That guy was great. Cordell Patterson for the Bears. Isn't he playing for the Vikings right now?
No, he's playing for the Steelers. He was the Steelers. He did play for
You mentioned returners, Mac, and to me, kick returners. I'm not talking about punt returners, kickoff returners. They're not nearly as important. If I'm a coach, I want the ball on the 30-yard line. I'll settle for it. It's not the 20, it's now the 30-yard line. So let them kick it into the end zone, and I'll gladly start on the 30-yard line. How many times have we seen a guy return a kick, and they say, "Oh, what a great kickoff return," and he gets it out to the 37-yard line, just like an extra 7 yards for all that. Give it to me on the 30, but punt returners are different. They have a chance to break something, do something a lot more special.
The only time I would disagree with you, well, first, the kickers sometimes do not kick in the end zone and force you to return it. But if you need a big play, say if you're behind by a couple touchdowns or something, and you need to make something happen, maybe you can break it. And that's the only time I would have. Other than that, I'm with you, Jack. Just take it at the 30-yard line. That's. I don't know why they go to 30, and why do they go to 30 now? It used to be the 20.
It used to be the 20. They push it out now. I think because they changed that number because of the rule change and how they receive as well.
It's all a safety thing, but they've got to tweak some of these rules. I mean, why even bother to kick off? I mean, let them just give the team who's receiving the ball maybe the option of getting the ball kicked to them or just getting it on the 30 or whatever, and move the game along. Don't waste that time with having to kick a boom in the end zone.
It's not a bad idea. So anyway, Patterson, Bears is even. He's playing a game. Came back after rule change. He has 9 kickoff returns for touchdowns. Eric Metcalf, I think he's Terry's son. Third-time All-Pro, led the league in kickoff returns, led the league in punt returns 4 different times, top 10. Son of Terry Metcalf, like father, like son. So I mean, he was an incredible special teams player. We got to talk about prime time too, right? Of course, Deion Sanders, bread and butter, 6 punt returns for touchdowns, 3 kickoff returns for touchdowns. And the last guy I'm going to talk about is Billy White Shoe Johnson, because I loved his dance at the end. I mean, he was an incredible kickoff returner. He was a 3-time Pro Bowl. He was in the 70s All-Decade team, 100th anniversary team. He ended up getting punt return yards of 3,317, kickoff returns 2,941, 8 touchdowns, and of course, he also played wide receiver for the Oilers. So those are the special team players.
How did you miss Brian Mitchell?
What do you want? I could have done James, I could have started in 1930. Every single one.
He's got the record for the most yards ever. He probably should be in the Hall of Fame if you're going to put a guy like Devin Hester in. But I mean, that's just my take.
Yeah. So,
well, the thing is, certain players who played before the Super Bowl era, I don't want to say time has forgotten them, but in a certain sense, some of them are crossed over. They played before the Super Bowl era. Mac had mentioned Sean Landeta before. He came from the USFL, the Philadelphia Stars, and it's easy to forget all the great players in that league. I used to go to their games. I saw Landeta play in Philadelphia. I went to a couple of games, and I went to Giant Stadium to see the USFL games. Jim Kelly, Steve Young, Herschel Walker, Sean Landeta, Reggie Williams, et cetera. I mean, it was like a phenomenal league. When you think of it, and it's hard to have a competing league because the NFL is a winter league, and come spring, baseball begins. I don't think there's the intensity of people wanting to go to the games the same way, perhaps, because once you've had the Super Bowl done, and then you have to crank it up again immediately after. And there's only so much sports we could take, let's be honest about it. If you like a lot of sports, it kind of wears you out because you you start paying attention to the NBA and the tennis and the this and the that and golf. It just gets to you after a while, and that's why I guess the USFL didn't make it with all the great players. But the NFL, it seems like they want to expand their time frame. The NFL is basically what, guys? Like a 6-month league: September, October, November, December, January, February. I guess it holds our attention for the most part for 6 months or close to that, not counting the draft. I could see that they, with the NFL, wants to stretch it a couple of more months, make it an 8-month thing, and it's, to me, it's a little, I don't know, is it getting to be a little too much now? But I'm not as focused on a lot of these late season NFL games like I was in the past. I think they're getting it too much, and they're putting it on too many networks that throw them. Today there's 3 games.
And the regular season, the regular season, I think, Jack, is kind of getting washed down a little bit, right? You're not seeing as many good games as you used to in the past, right? I mean, you had to wait the playoffs, and even the playoffs. How many blowouts were last year? I mean, I think maybe the players are tired. I think maybe a lot of players are hurt, and I don't think you're getting the best that you used to get. When the Steelers are playing the Cowboys for a Super Bowl, I don't think you're getting that anymore. And you saw what happened to the Cowboys. You saw what happened to the Eagles last year. They should have beat those other 2 teams. On paper, they should have beat them.
Well, the Eagles faltered at the end of the season for whatever reason. I think the Super Bowl, you get to regroup because you have a 2-week period where you have the time off. So the teams kind of get a chance to regroup. But I'm just saying, as a fan, like, a couple of days ago, there were 2 games on Netflix. I had problems with the games. I put on the Steelers-Chiefs game, and then I shut it off a little bit because I had to do something. I came back and I put Netflix back on. It wouldn't let me see the game as it was happening live. It would only let me see the game from the point I turned it off. So now I'm 15 minutes behind the actual game, and I'm trying every way to get it live, and I can't get it live because the streaming service is a screw up. And then I have to go out somewhere, and I can't get the second game, Baltimore against Houston. They're keeping me on the Steelers-Chiefs game that maybe ended an hour ago. They're keeping me on the second quarter. It was so dumb, And today, there are 3 games on the NFL Network. Okay, and I have, I don't have the NFL Network where I am, I have it at my other place, but not, New York, not here. I'm in Florida. And it's just, I don't want to order it and then have to cancel, go through that whole thing. And all 3 games on that. So how do you get it? I might be able to get it on my app, but just the idea that I have to maneuver, make deals, and figure things out. And then some people aren't tech savvy, so they have a hard time. Even my buddy Frank Laterzo, I do the show with Glove Fist. He sometimes tries to go to pay-per-view kind of to get a big fight from the streaming service, and he can't get it. They're giving him a hard time. And it even happened to me a couple of years ago in Miami. I attended a game, the World Baseball Classic. I decided I want to see a game live. I go to the stadium in Miami. I'm online to get my ticket. Now, there are tons of empty seats, so I'll get a ticket very easily. They're stopping me online, and they're telling me I have to go through the app. And I'm saying the box office is right here. Let me walk up to it and get my darn ticket. I have to go through the app. And they charge me a service fee. I have no choice. It's like it was blackmail indirectly. It's service. Why can't I just go up and get my ticket where the box office is over there? A service fee.
It's ridiculous, Jay. It's ridiculous.
Yeah, it really is, and it's discouraging.
Yeah.
It's no life. It's enough. You got to pay for the parking. Okay, I can understand that's part of the deal. They're going to charge you for parking or whatever, But you're online already, and you go there. And then there was another time. There was another time too. I went through the app, got tickets for a game. The app wasn't working beforehand. It wasn't confirming my tickets, even though they took my money. and they kept telling me, just go to the stadium. There are people there who will clear it up, not to worry. And one of the better known, places you get tickets online. It wasn't a fly-by night. I go to the stadium and they're giving me the runaround. And I go back and eventually I get my money back. But to go through all that and waste my time.
To see a game, yeah.
Yeah, just to see a game. It's, they had an article, I think in Sports Illustrated, whatever happened to the ticket stub. Remember, it used to be a big thing. You'd see a ticket stub to the game. And I guess those are outdated. Even programs, are they outdated game programs? Are they still popular, like collector's items? Maybe for Super Bowl, it's a collector's item.
I don't know. When we went to see the Giants and the Jets preseason, there was no program. I don't know if they don't do it for preseason games or not. Maybe they just don't do them. But I would imagine that you would have, for a big game like a Super Bowl or championship, you would have some kind of thing about the players and stuff, I would think.
Well, it'll be in the
a program is probably almost a waste of money now. Everything's digital, so they're gonna. I mean, you can look at everything on your phone.
Yeah, there's a program.
Yeah,
get the app.
But that's a good thing. But that's actually a good thing, being able to get information. Because I'm writing a book right now, Michael Spinks. So I'm watching all his fights that I can get on YouTube, taking notes meticulously, picking up on things. Even though I have a recollection, it doesn't compare to being able to see it all over again, remember all, the little tidbits that you could add in.
Sure.
So it's good that you could go to YouTube. You don't have to go to the library. The library is still great. Don't get me wrong. I'm not putting it down. But you could get so much information by, Googling things. Not that you should necessarily remember or believe all that you Google, but it's a great source of information how you could go, and Google things. Like even we were talking about the Raiders before with Ray Guy, with the amount of Super Bowl teams. We could make a quick reference to that, and I could get corrected that he was on 3 Super Bowl winners, not 2.
Right. So today we do have 3 NFL games to go along with college football games. This is that type of year, right? Christmas, New Year's, everybody's playing all the time.
Did you hear LeBron, Matt? LeBron James was complaining about the NFL stealing the NBA's thunder by Christmas Day, putting on their games. I mean, I like LeBron, but since when does the NBA have a foothold on Christmas Day just because they started putting on the games? And it's a free enterprise. People see what they want to see. I mean, most people would rather see an NFL game, a late season NFL game, than an NBA game, for the simple reason the NBA games aren't nearly as important.
I think he knows that the ratings are down in the NBA, and its totality, and the best day is probably on Christmas Day to get a high amount of ratings. And
why are the ratings down, James? In the NBA?
Many things. We're talking load management, lack of stars in the north.
Too much 3-point shooting, going up and down the baskets.
It's just not as good as the 3-point shooting. Excessive. It's a lot.
Yeah.
You know what I would love to do? Load management. I would have loved for the Warriors and Lakers to sit LeBron James, Steph Curry on Christmas Day, claiming load management, picking that day. That would have been great. I would have loved it.
Awesome. That would have been awesome.
Yeah. Stick it to the NBA. The coaches are probably ticked off on the players. Maybe they want to get back at their league, make a statement. I don't know.
There you go. And would it even be better if they started Bronny in LeBron's place, and that would just be
No, that might get good ratings. That would interest
it might, right? You never know.
Yeah. I mean,
all those Bronny fans out there.
Yeah,
Folks, thanks for tuning in. College games today, NFL today, all kinds of sports on today. We'll be back tomorrow with a big football show, 8 a.m. on Sunday, and we'll be reviewing all the football. There's going to be plenty of football to get to tomorrow. And, of course, we'll give you our picks. Jack from his famous trivia question. I got it back for him since I'm running the show. We got him answering the trivia questions again. Your favorite part, folks, your favorite part of the show. And we'll have a lot of fun. So have a great one, and we'll see you tomorrow. You going out tonight, Stan?